when you have the mother and the father separate,
Mm,
and you're able to supplement one of their incomes, you no longer needed them in the house. So, for
mm,
example, if you could be a single parent,
mm,
there is sources of secondary and tertiary income that could
mm,
supplement the other person's income. So you no longer needed to be married to have
mm,
children to maintain the household. So you can be a
mm,
single parent. And as that began to rise,
mm.
because in most cases the mother would have the child, right? So as
Yeah.
that began to rise in certain communities, it was widespread. And now it went from something that wasn't necessarily talked about or shamed to a
Mm,
little bit, where
mm,
now for some people it's a preferred method. They would say that if I'm going to have a child by terrain and he makes 45,000 and I make 45,000, I rather have the child making 45,000 and not be married to terrain, even though it would make more sense to have the child and make the 90,000. But
mm,
what comes to that 90,000 is, as you mentioned, there's going to be certain roles, right? There's going to be certain compromise because now we're a unit
mm,
raising this child versus I could
mm.
possibly get some source of income from terrain, child support, something from the government, and still
Yeah.
raise this child. And
Mm,
because it's no longer the village raising the child, I think the daycare has
mm,
replaced the village, if that makes
mm.
sense. Does that make sense
Yeah.
to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there are some, I actually work with, I have a lot of people in my course who are childcare providers and educators, and some of the ones in my current course have home daycare businesses where they might just have, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 children in there. And one lady in particular that comes to mind, she's got 2 of her own children and she has about 4 or 5 children each day, but she's actually using the nurtured heart approach in her caring of these children. So they're very fortunate. I think that like, and I've been into a lot of early childhood facilities, childcare centres, and some of them seem very big and very cold, and you know, kind of they don't have that warm family feeling, and then others do. So it really does depend as well. And I guess if you know if you are a young parent and you have to be out working and you do have to put your child in care, maybe it's worth taking a little bit of time to look for some of those, you know, maybe home daycare type situations where you feel that the carer is like-minded. Although it is tricky, I really it's really, really difficult these days. And I know that, you know, my youngest son and his partner, I know that I feel that she will want to go back to work sooner than 5 years, just because she loves her career and what she does. And I hope that and I'm pretty sure they will, you know, want my husband and I to be a part of their, you know, bringing up of their child, because I know they trust us and I know we have the same values. But not every family has that. Not every young couple has, you know, parents who can step in. So yeah, it is very, very tricky. But I think, you know, sometimes it is also about quality and not what's the word? Yeah, quality, not quantity. So, for example, if you can't be with your child 8 hours a day, the 2 hours or the 3 hours that you are with them, make sure that is quality time. And so that the child does feel, you know, supported and cared for and loved. Our parenting coach, when my son was 14 to 16, when he was really, really challenging, he said something to us that has really stuck in my mind. And he said to me, "Do you know how gangs are formed?" And I'm like, "Well, I kind of know what a gang is, you know, like whether it be a street gang or a political gang or what have you." And he said, when the child, and you might relate to this or not, but when the child doesn't feel connected and loved and seen and heard in the home, and we're probably talking more now about adolescence, you know, or preteens or adolescents, when they don't feel seen or heard, you know, mum doesn't get me, dad doesn't get me, they're always yelling at me, they don't let me do anything, I don't feel, you know, like they know who I am, they will go out and seek their gang elsewhere. And they will probably even have that vulnerability about them where a gang leader or member of some description will bring them in because of their vulnerability, you know, and these kids can end up in situations where they're doing things that might not even align with who they are as a person, just because they want to be a part of that gang as such, or community. So there's that sort of thing as well. And, you know, and I know that a lot of parents I speak to, their teens, uh, they're not feeling connected to their teenagers. Their kids are either not talking to them, or they're arguing with them all the time, or they're spending 90% of their time in their rooms on their devices. You know, they're barely coming out to have meals with the family. And the parents are like, I don't know what happened. You know, when they were 10, 11, 12, everything was okay. And now all of a sudden they don't want anything to do with us. And so that relationship and connection needs to start earlier.